way they position the building on Wabasha Hill above the city, it has a little prominence. The stonework, the artwork, it's pretty much irreplaceable. There isn't the people around today do everything the way we had originally.
Everyone knows Minnesota's capital is regarded as one of the best architectural capitals in the country, and really that marble, it would have been a difficult choice to go with any other stone than the Georgian white marble.
When this building opened in 1905, people came by the thousands just to see the electric lights and to see the artwork and to see the beautiful architecture, because this really was kind of that step forward for Minnesota to say we've arrived as a state. We have the culture. Out east, people are always looking down on the Midwest as kind of backwoods, not much going on there, but when people saw photographs or came out here to St. Paul to visit the Capitol, they were really impressed. This was something you would see in Washington, D.C. or New York or Philadelphia or Boston.
Key things that helped facilitate moving forward Capitol restoration was the creation of the Preservation Commission, and that law was passed in 2011 with bipartisan support. It had both Republican and Democratic authors, both in the House and Senate. And the commission itself is made up of the top leadership of state government, both majority and minority members from the House and Senate, as well as the governor, lieutenant governor, chief justice, as well as public members.
I have a chunk of marble in my office that literally fell down from somewhere off the side of the building and landed about 5 feet in front of me where I was walking.
2009 is when we had discovered that we had exterior stone that was at risk of falling, and that's when we had to put up scaffolding from a life safety standpoint, some protective barriers, and that really started the ball rolling on getting the right attention on fixing and restoring the state capitol building.
Put in quite a bit to restore the ceiling up on the 3rd floor, and then just this past spring, water began to seep through it, and it wasn't coming in from the outside. It was coming in from condensation from one of the air handling units.
The Capitol is out of code so badly that one of the reasons why it has to have renovations for life and safety things.
The Capitol wasn't built, for example, Cass Gilbert put in one women's ladies' restroom in the whole building, and it was a small one. Because when the Capitol opened, not only were there not any female legislators, they couldn't even vote. So the Capitol was sort of the original man cave in 1905. Certainly they didn't make any accommodations for disabled people, even though in 1905 there were an awful lot of them, especially war veterans coming home from the Civil War. Who were still around in 1905 in great numbers, and even some of those that were more recently back from the Spanish-American War.
The thing you have going on with the exterior is the decorative elements on this Capitol are, there's about 50,000 plus pieces of individual stone on the Capitol, and many of those have some type of ornamental decoration on it, and so it's those decorative pieces that see the most significant wear and tear over time.
Well, the marble on the Capitol is a lot of people who come to our display at the State Fair in the past 2 years have looked at it and said, how come I've been to the Vatican, that was put up 500 years ago. How come that marble looks good and this looks so terrible? And the reason is our climate. Marble is very porous. It allows water to seep into it. If anybody has a regular marble as opposed to a granite countertop, you've seen this happen. Well, it freezes and thaws and flakes off. And so what you have is the Capitol literally dissolving.
1 or 2 tablets of Alka-Seltzer become an alkalizing liquid your body uses easily, quickly, naturally.
And it's being scraped down and sanded down, and a lot of the parts of the building are being completely removed and replaced with freshly carved pieces. He also discovered that in the process of carving the Capitol 105 years ago, they were using a air chisel system back then that was kind of primitive. And it was such a violent motion that when they were carving the stone, that it actually introduced little microfissures into the rock itself. Well, here you can see where they're replacing some of the most deteriorated portions and decorative portions of the Capitol with freshly carved pieces. They found 2 locations to get these pieces carved, by the way. One was in Toronto, Canada, and the other was in Italy. And as it turns out, Italy is actually the cheaper source than Canada. And partially because there's so many folks who do that type of work over there, that there actually is a competitive market for stone carving. Who would have thought?
Over the previous 20 years, something like 80% of all the money put into this building was basically done on an emergency basis or a repair basis. There has been really very little money put into the building over the years for actually, renovation and bringing the bill up. It was always basically something's gone wrong. They've had to fix something.
There's about 2/3 of the building under construction, so those are 2/3 of the building is in a construction zone and not open to the public. So really, you're going to have the House and Senate chambers, and you're going to have 3 committee hearing rooms. Other than that, a lot of the tenants have already been relocated out of the building, and there's going to be construction work going on. Obviously, safety is a priority. For everyone, both in the construction zones and in the public spaces. So it's going to be historic from the standpoint that it's going to be unlike any other legislative session that there's ever been.
I think it's a good idea as we get towards the beginning of the session to come visit senators by yourself and take a look around and kind of get a feel for the place. What you think you might have known about the Capitol prior to construction, or maybe from the 2014 session, has completely changed. It's you won't recognize the place anymore.
The House is not really affected on the day-to-day things as the Senate has been. And also the Senate Minority Caucus is also not affected. Their offices are still intact. It's the majority offices in this building that are being affected by it.
In 2015, it's going to be very cozy. Most of the building is shut off. The rotunda is closed. The entire east wing is closed.
It's going to affect lobbyists and the public coming because there's going to only be a small area out in front. And I'll give you an example. Is, many members are called off the floor by constituents and by, or by people concerned with an issue. And they had many areas where they could just kind of go off and talk. Now there's only going to be a small area in front of the chambers.
We're down to just 3 hearing rooms, room 15, 107, and 112, and that's it. In order to make it work, we're going to probably run more hearings in each room, basically, and go later into the day than we had to. That's not finalized yet. We're just trying to figure out how to organize the committees to get it to work. We will have television up. It actually will be new digital television that will be going. So if it's acceptable to watch TV, we will be televised.
But the House will be losing its caucus rooms. So that's going to be, as far as the House being able to meet in caucus, I don't know how they're going to accommodate. I may presume they're going to do it in the State Office building. Also, the House that has 1 hearing room in this building, and that's room 118. And again, that's in the East Wing, and that has been taken over for renovation. So that's where the Rules Committee, again, that's going to impact it.
Right at the moment, the entire basement is closed off. You can't take the tunnel between the State Office building and the Capitol. Knock on wood, that will be reopened in time for 2015 session.
For as far as demonstrations out in the front of the House chamber, like we've seen over the past several years, it's going to be that's going to have to be limited, and yes, and we're going to be crowded. We're not going to have the rotunda where people are going to, and I don't know if there's going to be a snack bar. There's all these things that are going to change that are going to affect people.
There literally is no space inside the Capitol outside of the lobby, if you're a lobbyist. But in terms of space, it's so tight in the Capitol that there's not even a private conference room anywhere in the building. Something else to keep in mind if you have a day on the Hill. If you bring folks here, there's nowhere for them to meet outside of a senator's office, and they only have about 2 or 3 chairs in each one. So,
After the 2015 session, basically the building will be evacuated. Both the north wing, and the rest of the west wing will be underneath construction for that time.
Wow. Here's the space for the lobbyists.
what's the
Yeah. Here's the House Minority Caucus room. Here's room 15, huh?
They had to bring in all the piping and all the ductwork that has to go underneath the floor in the basement. That is an ongoing. That's going to take, from my understanding, from 2013 till the end of the project, beginning at the end of 2016.
Senate Media Services. The new Government Relations Council space is right here in the basement.
Enjoy.
Enjoy. So here's Senate Research.
We'll have restrooms available. They're going to be greatly reduced in quantity, and we'll, under the Port Cochere to the south, we're actually going to have temporary restroom units that are outside. One will be ADA accessible. They will be heated.
Where are these from, the stands?
A lot of them are just the fancy bronze colored bases are from just everywhere in the Capitol corridor. Those,
Third floor. These are the office suites that Metzen and
this is Metzen's office you want.
Metzen's office, Clausen's office. Down the hall is Tomassoni's office. Wing to the house is closed off. The North Star is covered with plywood. The floors are covered with some kind of protective masonite. Women's bathroom is over there.
Yeah.
The steps are covered with, again, some kind of protective surface. The Supreme Court chamber is, they do anything with that or not?
Yeah.
Heading towards the governor's office. This would be the Attorney General's suites over here. On the right.
Doing a lot of
Wow. Yeah, reception area. This is the Attorney General's office. Governor's reception room.
these are still here.
Yeah.
Wow.
When are those?
The governor's office. And this is the governor's like study here. Tends to operate out here, doesn't he?
No, this is right there. That was where you.
It's going to be unlike any other legislative session that there's ever been in the building, and it's going to require everybody's patience and flexibility going through the legislative session.
The Senate has been the major tenant in the Capitol since anyone can remember in living memory. And we're losing 38,000 square feet in the Capitol. And giving a sense of how much space that is, that's 80% the size of a football field. That's the office space and storage space and whatnot that the Senate formerly controlled in the Capitol is going to be lost. Most of that is going to convert to public gathering spaces.
There's been a number of studies that tied Capitol restoration to the need for additional space. And that's not unusual if you benchmark, if you look out to what other state capitals had to do when they restored their state capitals. Wyoming's going through that right now. They are creating new legislative space because there wasn't enough space. Once you start to restore a state capitol and add in new mechanical systems, new life safety systems, all those systems take up space. And so we knew that we were going to lose space just from the standpoint of bringing up the Capitol to modern mechanical, electrical, plumbing systems, life safety systems. But we also were aware that we've had a number of hearings. Minnesotans like to participate in the legislative process, and there's just increased demand to participate in hearings. And so we certainly were looking for opportunities to how can we have larger hearing rooms to help accommodate that interest in participating in the legislative process.
When the Capitol was built, it was, they had the legislature here, House and the Senate, and they all had offices here, as well as the governor. But they didn't have public hearings. They met in very small rooms, just the committee members themselves. So you would see an office door that would say Senate Finance Committee. And there was a table in there, rather small one. They're the type of Cass Gilbert tables that you still see in a lot of the Senate offices. And the members would just sit there and decide bills. Lobbyists could go in there for the most part.
The new building is going to have 3 large hearing rooms that are located on the first floor. That it'll play an important role during the 2016 session. It'll have the Senate chambers will also be housed in the new building, along with bringing both the minority and majority parties of the Senate into one building. So it's going to play a very important role in the legislative process going forward.
One thing that's a nice part of this project for the Minnesota Historical Society is we're actually going to go back to our original space in the Capitol's history. When the building opened in 1905, the Minnesota Historical Society was housed in the ground floor east corridors. So the exhibits, the reading room, the library, all of the collection was housed there. And then of course we needed more space. We got to the point of needing a new building, so that's when what is now presently the Judicial Building was built in 1918, and the Historical Society moved there. So it's kind of a neat part of this process to be coming back to some of that original Minnesota Historical Society space. So we'll have a large education center where will serve as a conference committee room, but also a place where we can bring in thousands of kids to do all kinds of our public programming, our school programs, which delve into every theme of the Capitol, if it's art, architecture, Minnesota history, and even the government process. We do a lot of hands-on activities, so that allows us that opportunity to do that in that space.
That was one of the most significant things we did in the early planning stages is to divide the Capitol up into zones. And Zone 1 spaces are those historic spaces that the public is used to seeing, that we wanted to bring those back to the 1905 condition, and that's from the lighting to the decorative painting. We want to bring back that architecture and that history to those areas. Other spaces there are more the working areas of the building where there's offices. There's Zone 2, obviously we have a transition from Zone 1 to Zone 2, all the way down to the mechanical spaces in Zone 4. So those are all treated differently with different levels of treatment based on what zone it's in. So with the Capitol, obviously a key thing to facilitate restoration is moving the existing building tenants out of the building temporarily while restoration is happening. And so that involved finding space both on the campus and in leased facilities, and really working closely with House, Senate, Governor's office, each of the tenants to find space that would allow them to continue to meet their constitutional obligations and still meet with constituents, but at the same time facilitating the restoration project.
We were forced to move a lot of offices out of the Capitol. Senate Council and Research has been moved over to the Centennial Building. Senate Majority Research is over there now. So is the Senate Fiscal Office, the Journal is over there, and Index is over there, and also our Human Resources offices. So we've moved a lot of offices from the Capitol into the Centennial Office building up on the 5th floor. Those are open. You can certainly go visit there as well.
And don't forget the Capitol Press Corps. We're over here in the Centennial Office Building too.
There are much more security measures being put in, but they are, for obvious reasons, it's not things that we can elaborate on.
With both the Capitol and the new building, you're trying to balance accessibility, access, with putting in basic infrastructure needed to help facilitate public safety. And you try to do that in as discreet a way as possible, but you also want to put the infrastructure in place to support the public safety initiatives that happen.
Well, parking has always been bad around the Capitol, and that's not going to change. But there are some ramps nearby. We're losing all of the Lot B parking. That won't affect many visitors to the Capitol, but we should have, in a fairly short order, the new ramp, D, I believe it's called, on Rice Street should be close to completion or open by then. I have to actually double check on that. Sears, I believe, will still be available in 2015. The slots that are at Bethesda Hospital and some of the other commercial lots will still be available. So the parking situation really won't change that much. It does for the senators and the staff. They've put up the temporary lot on the front lawn of the Capitol, for example. And then going on down the road, all parking by the Capitol is going to disappear. It's going to be landscaped instead. There will be no parking in front of the Capitol for senators anymore. And all that parking is going to go away, and it's going to look much nicer. If you take a picture of the Capitol and you don't have somebody's rusty old truck out front, it's going to be the way closer to what was originally built in 1905.
Minnesota's Capitol, when we reopen in 2017, it's going to be a working state Capitol building. It'll still be the seat of state government, and so you'll have the House and Senate chambers, you'll have the Supreme Court chambers. So many of the historic spaces that the public is used to seeing will remain the same. But in addition, there's going to be significant improvements for the public. There's going to be a new public events space that's reservable for when folks have their day on the Hill or other events. They'll be reservable by the public. There's additional seating capacity off the Rathskeller, the dining area. There's also, during those late night sessions, there's going to be additional, all that's been, food services happened out in the public corridors, and there's now going to be a room with some seating that can happen going to those late nights. So you're going to, top to bottom, the restrooms are going to be significantly improved in the building. Technology is going to be improved, being able to get cell phone service coverage throughout the building. All those things are going to be improvements that the public sees when the building reopens. But it did take leadership. It took leadership from both the majority and minority parties as well as from the governor. In the first commission meeting that was held in the fall of 2011, the governor set the direction and the tone. He absolutely understood the need for comprehensive restoration. He understood that the building was deteriorating and it was at a tipping point. And he really just implored everybody to take one of the most difficult votes of their careers to basically kick themselves out of the Capitol building to facilitate the restoration of the project over a 3-4 year time period. This wasn't about short-term fixes. This was about taking a comprehensive approach to the restoration of the Capitol. Just a wonderful thing to see that the elected officials were, it was not about necessarily, they were certainly looking out for the institutions of the offices, but they're also looking out for the next 100 years and how should the building be used. What's most important to be in Minnesota State Capitol building? What are those important functions that should be in the State Capitol building?